What is up, ladies and gentlemen? Zimmy here once again with How to Mage 5.0 Part 2, and today we are going to go over the glyphs that are introduced into 5.0 for mages. Some of them are pretty freaking awesome, and I hope you guys like them as much as I do. Let's get right down into it. We're going to start off with the major glyphs. As you know, guys, primary glyphs, prime glyphs are gone. They are completely removed. Now we are back to major glyphs and minor glyphs. Why they implemented the prime glyphs beforehand, who knows, and then took it away, but yeah, whatever. Anyways, so let's get down into it. First, we've got Arcane Explosion. Very simple, increases the radius by 5 yards. Great for arcane mages, for extra AoE and stuff like that. You could also technically use it for any spec, really, but, you know, arcane with arcane. Next, we've got Glyph of Arcane Power. It increases the duration and the cooldown by 100%. Basically, that means longer cooldown, however, longer time using it. This was definitely going to be a glyph to go for when you are arcane, especially currently in 5.0 with the 4-piece, because it reduces the cooldown. Definitely take advantage of that. That is what I use when I am arcane, so it's definitely something to take. Next, we've got Glyph of Armors. As you guys know, Armors is now a castable spell. You have to cast it now. You can't switch in the middle. Well, you can switch in the middle of the fights, but it's quite frankly, it's a DPS loss if you do that. So most of the time, you're going to stick with one glyph and go with it. So Glyph of Armors reduces the cast time by 1.5 seconds, and it increases defensive abilities by an extra 10%. Currently, I do not have this glyph, so as you can tell, I'm looking at Glyph of Molten Armor. It reduces all physical damage by 6%. If I were to glyph that, it would be at 16%. So, as you can tell, that's what it's going to do. It's going to be great for PvP, as well as some abilities or some fights in PvE situations. I use this glyph every now and then if I don't have a glyph to choose from, just for extra survivability. Next, we've got Glyph of Blink. Glyph of Blink has not changed. It increases the distance by 5 yards. It's pretty self-explanatory. Next, we've got Glyph of Combustion. Now, this glyph is partially situational. However, it is definitely a glyph to go for in PvE. Basically, it increases the duration by 100%, increases the initial damage by 100%, and increases the cooldown by 100%. Once again, with our 4-piece, reduces the cooldown. It puts it down to around 90 seconds-ish. 32, I believe, or something like that. Yeah, it's about a minute cooldown with the glyph, and half of that without the glyph. With that being said, I choose this glyph. I raided last night, and I actually went all the way with this glyph. It was very good, great for a lot of fights, even Hagara. However, I do see being beneficial to not glyph it sometimes on bursty fights like trash, etc. So now, with that being said, Glyph of Combustion also adds a new style for combustion. Just to let you guys know that there are different haste breakpoints depending on glyphed or unglyphed, so make sure you check that out. I will put a link below with the spreadsheet for all of the combustion haste breakpoints. You want to make sure that you can reach the same identical haste breakpoints to really make an educated decision, whether it be glyphed or unglyphed. Next, we've got Cone of Cold. Cone of Cold increases the damage by Cone of Cold by 200%. It is definitely a glyph to take for AoE situations. As you can tell, I currently have it glyphed right now. This was pretty much my setup for Heroic Madness. It was really nice for the Congenial Bloods and for even the normal Bloods throughout the platforms. It was a nice increase, 200% damage on an easy cooldown for extra AoE. Next, we've got Glyph of Counterspell. Glyph of Counterspell is really nice, especially in a PvP situation. It allows you to use it while you are casting or channeling. However, there is a side effect to that. It does increase its cooldown by 4 extra seconds, so make sure you use it in the right situation. You're not counterspelling something that you probably shouldn't counterspell because there may be another big spell coming up. Glyph of Deep Freeze is the next major glyph that we've got. Now, Glyph of Deep Freeze, as you guys know, it does not do damage on immune targets anymore. It's just immune, end of story. So, however, Glyph of Deep Freeze makes this ability off the GCD, which is really nice. You can pretty much cast it while you're, at the end of something or before something and not really feel an effect on it. And get a little bit extra bursty in your frost spec or even non-frost spec. Next, we've got Glyph of Evocation. Obviously, it does the exact same thing right now in 5.0. However, in 5.1, in Mists of Pandaria, it will add a couple extra things. With the Invocation talent, if you take that at level 90, it is only going to give you 40% of health upon completing the Evocation, unlike the original being 60% over the duration. Okay, so you got to make sure you take that into account. And if you happen to take the Rune of Power talent, then you will gain 1% of your health while you're standing in it every second, which is really nice for those non-movement fights. Next, we've got Glyph of Fire Blast. Glyph of Fire Blast is pretty much your impact. They took away the impact procs. This is the glyph to go. As you can tell, I have it. It is definitely something you take, whether you're taking Living Bomb or another Tempest. There will be some fights, like single target fights, where technically you will not need this glyph at all. So you could technically put something else in if you wanted to. Glyph of Fire Blast allows you to spread your living bombs, as well as causing your Frost Bomb to instantly explode, and causing another Tempest to do its little bursty thing to all nearby targets instead of random targets. So it's definitely an extra DPS increase for another Tempest, for Living Bomb, and if you need that extra burst, if you got Frost Bomb, then it's way to go as well. Now you've got Glyph of Frost Nova. All it does, self-explanatory, decreases the cooldown by 5 seconds. End of story. Now we've got Glyph of Frost Firebolt. This is going to reduce your cast time by 0.5 seconds. Honestly, I have not played around with this glyph. I've never win Frost Fire spec ever in my lifetime, so I don't find it useful, and I probably will never touch this glyph, but hey, I got it anyways. So next we've got Glyph of Ice Block. Now, Glyph of Ice Block is pretty nifty in a PvP situation. Basically, you ice block, and at the end of your ice block, whether you you cancel it out with a cancel or a macro, or the duration falls off, you instantly get a free Frost Nova, and it makes you immune to all spells for 3 seconds. I find this will be pretty useful in probably an arena setting, or maybe even an RBG setting when there's a lot of melee. Next, you've got Glyph of Ice Lance. This is a PvE talent, as well as it can be a RBG talent too for Frost. It pretty much turns your Ice Lance into a cleave onto another target for 50% of its damage. It is definitely the way to go for AoE situations for Frost. I pretty much take it no matter what for my Frost spec. Next, we've got Glyph of Icy Veins. Now, this is definitely something you will take as Frost. I have pretty much figured out that, well, the rumors are going around that Glyph of Icy Veins is the way to go to and ignore the haste buff. Basically, you trade your haste buff for 3 of your frost, for 2 extra frost bolts, 2 extra frost fire bolts, 2 extra ice lances, and your water elemental will actually cast 2 extra water bolts at the same time for 40% damage each bolt instead of you getting a haste speed. That being said, it totals up to 120% of your extra damage overall just with this glyph every time you pop it. Especially with the cooldown reduction with our 4-piece, I find this the way to go as a frost DPS in PvE situations, and you could technically use it in PvP situations as well. And next we've got Glyph of Invisibility. Glyph of Invisibility is pretty self-explanatory. Increases your movement speed while you're invisible for 40%. I don't know if I'll ever use this glyph. I could possibly see it useful, but honestly not that much. But you'll get to run faster while you're invisible. Next you got a Glyph of Mana Gem. This is for you lazy mages who hate conjuring up mana gems all the time. Instead of having 3 charges, you get 10 now. So it's pretty cool. I've used it a few times, not so much lately because I've used my glyphs for other things. But hey, if you're lazy and you don't like making mana gems, that's the way to go. Glyph of Polymorph. Glyph of Polymorph is the exact same as it was prior to 5.0. It removes all of the dots on the target that you polymorph. Pretty self-explanatory, so you don't have to get it broken when you polymorph somebody. However, it will not prevent people from dotting up that target, just to let you guys know. Glyph of Remove Curse. It will increase the damage you deal by 10% for 10 seconds after you have successfully removed a curse. This is going to be great against warlocks. It is pretty much our counter to them. Hey, you put, Curse of the Elements up on me or something. I'm going to decurse it, and bam, I've got 10% extra damage. Definitely a PvP situation. I do not see this being used in a PvE situation. Now you've got Glyph of Slow. This is going to be our Nether Vortex, I believe it was called in 4.3. Honestly, I kind of feel fail at not remembering that exact talent, but hey, it was the talent that gave you slow applied by your arcane blast. Take this glyph and you get the exact same effect. Just for you guys that don't know, Torment of the Weak is gone. You do not have it anymore, so do not think glyphing this will increase your damage done to a target. It is gone, so it will not. That doesn't work. Next, you've got Glyph of Spell Steal. Now, this is actually a pretty useful spell. It pretty much, you gain 3% of your health, of your maximum health, sorry, every time you successfully steal a spell. Great against druids, great against anybody with a lot of buffs in general, as well as, the druids putting regrowths and rejuvenations on themselves. Definitely the way to go. Keeps you up alive. I've used it a couple times. Not too bad. Next, you've got Glyph of Water Elemental. It increases your health of your Water Elemental by 40%, and it is going to allow your Water Elemental to cast while moving, so it will always follow you around instead of staying in one area once it starts casting. I think this is a pretty cool talent. It allows more survivability for your Water Elemental. Sorry, glyph, not talent. Allows more survivability, and you don't have to worry about it being often BFE in a PvE situation or a PvP situation, not being in range for your freeze. That pretty much ends all the major glyphs. With that being said, here are my top choices for glyphs, depending on which spec. For fire, we'll go with that right now. For fire, I take Glyph of Combustion. As I said before, it is pretty much something I stand with. I make sure that I get the haste break points for Glyph of Combustion, so I get the same amount of ticks and more damage, obviously, if I were to unglyph it. I take Glyph of Fire Blast when I'm running Living Bomb or AoE situations with Nether Tempest. And then if I have another AoE situation, like I said, I was doing Heroic Madness last night, I take Glyph of Cone of Cold. Now, if it were for a single target fight, I would still take Combustion. However, obviously, I really wouldn't need Fire Blast or Cone of Cold, so I would probably take Armors and then Evocation for extra survivability. Next, we'll go into the Arcane talents, or Arcane Glyphs. I would take Arcane Power as my number one and always keeping as Arcane. And then pretty much I would choose, if it was an AoE situation, I'd probably take Arcane Explosion. as well as whether it be Fire Blast, Nether Tempest, and possibly maybe Cone of Cold. I may swap back and forth depending on what those talents are. That's pretty much what I would take in the PvE situations. And then obviously if it was single target, then I would just take Evocation and Armors once again. Now as Frost, these will be a little different. I will take Icy Veins. That'll be my primary glyph that I will take. And then I would take Ice Lance for AoE situations. And then I would probably take a Cone of Cold for AoE situations as well. If it were single target, I would still take Icy Veins. And then I would probably take, once again, Evocation and Armors. Those are really great survivability glyphs, and that's the way I would go with those. For PvP, I would probably once again either take Combustion, Arcane Power, or Icy Veins, depending on what I was spec'd as. Glyph of Ice Lance if I was Frost, most likely if I was doing BGs. And then I would probably dwindle between Frost Nova, Ice Block, or let's see. I don't know. Frost Nova, Ice Block, and maybe Counterspell. It really depended. Once again, these are very situational glyphs. I'm pretty much just giving my recommendations of what I personally like and what I've seen quite a few mages use as well. Now, let's get into the minor glyphs. Minor glyphs are pretty much, as you guys know and have read, minor glyphs are basically just glyphs to be fun, be enjoyable. However, there has been a few that are actually very good and I would actually consider mandatory to take. In fact, let's just go to the mandatory one right now because it is pretty much the only mandatory one in the minor glyph lineup, and that is Glyph of Momentum. Guys, this is an amazing glyph, and quite frankly, I think this is probably my favorite glyph out of all the glyphs. I have been looking forward to this since I was playing on the beta. It allows you to teleport in the direction that you are going instead of the way you are facing. That being said, you can glyph backwards, you can glyph sideways, you can glyph blink. Sorry, you can blink backwards, you can blink sideways, you can blink diagonal. Great for PvP situation, or I should say amazing for PvP situations, because so many people get confused when a mage blinks backwards. As well as even PvE situations, so you can pretty much keep your eye on the boss the whole entire time, keep your character face that way, and blink, diagonal or whatever to get out of random stuff. That's the way to go. Next, now, pretty much here are all the funsy glyphs. You've got Glyph of Arcane Languages. I really have not found this glyph useful at all, but once you cast Arcane Brilliance, it allows you to comprehend your allies' racial language. For you RPers, this may be fun. Anybody who's actually just into PvE, PvP, playing the game and stuff like that, you're not going to probably take this. I'm not going to lie. But for you RPers, this is probably something you would really like. Next, you got Conjure Familiar. Now I find this one fun. I fail to use it a lot. You'll see me on my stream every once in a while. I'll be playing around with it, summoning, whatever. But you get a Fire, Frost, or Arcane Familiar. It's this little itty-bitty elemental that follows you around, kind of like a pet. However, if you die or if you zone different areas, it will disappear and you'll have to cast it again. I believe it is on a 5-minute cooldown, so be aware of that. I always cast mine, say, in the beginning of a PvP situation or right before I start raiding, after I've zoned in. Next, you got Crittermorph. Oh man, Crittermorph. It allows you to polymorph a critter, no matter what critter it is, as long as it has a critter tag to it. It allows you to polymorph them for an hour, so you can turn bunny rabbits into turtles and pigs into cats, whatever you want. Squirrels into pigs. So that's the way to go if you want to mess around with that. I've actually seen a lot of mages let's see, on just make this little farm of pigs on critters. It was pretty interesting. Next, you got Glyph of Illusion. Now, Glyph of Illusion has had a lot of QQ about it. I personally, I'm not going to lie, I would like for them to change the cooldown on it. It's got a 30-minute cooldown. Kind of lame, but it allows you to transform yourself into anything that is... It says it allows you to transform into anything. However, I've noticed being in raid situations, I've cast it on myself, and I normally turn into the person I'm closest to. So I purposely stand next to Taurens and stuff like that and turn myself into. Right now, I'll cast it, and I am a Draenei. So there you go. That is the Glyph in action. Right there, I'm a male Draenei with, looks like I have an eye patch. Oh man, I got an eye patch. That's the way to go. Okay. Anyways, as you can tell, 30-minute cooldown. I hope they reduce this because it only lasts 2 minutes, and you know, you could just buy a bunch of potions of illusion if you wanted to, or if you were an alchemist, you could just make them. Next, you've got Loose Mana. Now, this is an interesting ability. I could see it being useful if you're pretty much like pre-gymming, so you're not wasting mana. However, I know myself and a few others, they tend to try to wait until you've got a lot of mana gone, or I would say at least 75% or 25% of your mana gone before they pop it, so you're not wasting anything. But it pretty much turns your mana regeneration into a mana hot. And it gives you that set amount of mana for over 6 seconds versus instantly. Next, you got Glyph of Mirror Images. Guys, it's the same exact thing. Glyph of Mirror Images, depending on your spec, it'll cast Arcane Blast or Fireball if you're Fire or Arcane. Glyph of Momentum, I already went through. Like I said, this is definitely a go-to glyph. You are crazy if you do not take this glyph. Next, you got Glyph of Monkey. Your sheep spell turns into a monkey. Glyph of Penguin, Glyph of Porcupine. Now this is an interesting one. I have not found this one useful at all, and I don't really see it being useful. Once again, funsies. Glyph of Rapid Teleportation. You get increased movement speed by 70% for a minute, so you can run around. However, I have been told that if you zone into a place or something like that, then it disappears. So you can't just, alright, take this teleport when the Q pops, and then pop the Q, and then now you've got 70%. However, once again, I think, unless you're starting right in the middle of one, it's not going to be useful. Next, you got Glyph of Bear Cub. Turns your polymorph into a bear. Obviously, I don't have it. I have looked for it. I cannot find it. If you know where I can get one, put it in the comment below. But there's definitely been none on the auction house. So I'm looking forward to get that one. That would kind of be cool, I guess. Turn it into a little bear cub. But that, guys, is pretty much the glyphs. As you can tell, I am running Glyph of Momentum, Glyph of Illusion, and Glyph of Conjure Familiar. Those are my personal preferences, but I will definitely say Glyph of Momentum is the way to go for a minor glyph, and quite frankly should be mandatory. If you don't take it, it'll be a pain in the ass. Just remember, guys, if you're running or you're falling or something, remember you've got that glyph or it can completely screw you. That's it for the glyphs, guys. Hope you enjoyed this part 2 of How to Mage 5.0. I am coming out with part 3 very soon, and it will be going over rotations and gymming. I know you guys have been looking forward to it. I have slightly been debating on whether putting it into a 3-4 parter, because it will be a lot of explanations. So anyways, thank you guys for tuning in. Hope you guys enjoyed it. Hit the like button, hit the subscribe button to find out when I release more videos, and I hope to see you guys on the battlefield and see you in my channel at www.twitch.tv/digitaladdiction. Good night.